When I was a kid, there was nothing more I loved than the month of October. Everything around just seemed to turn spooky overnight. The homes around would start to put up their Halloween decorations, and even my favorite TV shows would join in on the celebration. One thing I always looked forward to above all others was the return of the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror. These once-a-year Halloween specials were always my favorite, and most of the time taken out of regular rotation, meaning the only time you could see them was in October. There was no instant streaming back then, so you were at the mercy of television broadcasters, just hoping someone might slip up and include one of these episodes randomly. But during the month of October, they almost exclusively took over. The episodes would take my favorite characters and drop them into outlandish and horrifying scenarios, often altering their personalities to fit the more macabre and spooky nature of the show. Largely inspired by the works of EC Comics, each Treehouse of Horror would put the Simpsons in various horror-themed short stories, often spoofing popular films or television. They were considered non-canon, so the writers were given a lot of more leeway for what they could or couldn't do. The original Treehouse of Horror opened with Marge Simpson giving a warning for the terrifying content about to be watched. This warning was actually genuine because the creators felt the show might be too scary for younger audiences. It was also a parody of the pre-credit warning from the 1931 film Frankenstein, in which Edward Van Sloan would address the audience, warning them of what they were about to see.
So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now is your chance to, well, we've warned you.
These pre-episode warnings were included in the first, second, and fifth episodes, but were eventually dropped as the writers felt they were too much of a hassle to write and were largely ignored anyways. Staff writer Al Jean said, "The idea of it to parody EC Comics was really original and kind of shocking for a cartoon on network television." Executive producer Jim Brooks said, "We better have a disclaimer at the beginning of this Halloween show, so Marge came out and warned people that they were going to see something scary. And the funny thing is, it's now very tame by our Halloween standards and by network animation standards." After Marge's stern warning, the traditional opening and theme for The Simpsons is replaced by a new spooky rendition performed by Alf Clausen, who would go on to score most of The Simpsons music from here on out. The title is also changed to The Simpsons Halloween Special, despite the episodes being called Treehouse of Horror. It wouldn't be until Treehouse of Horror 13 that the title would officially make the change. The camera then pans through a cemetery filled with tombstones with humorous names. These would often be names of people who have died in the past, or shows that were recently cancelled. They even reference the Paul is Dead urban legend that suggests Paul McCartney from the Beatles died in 1966 and was replaced by a lookalike. These cemetery openings would only last until the fifth episode, because like the opening Marge warnings, they were seen as too difficult to come up with new names every year, so they simply dropped them. From there, we're introduced to the Simpsons kids while they try to terrorize one another with pranks and spooky stories, while Homer listens in, enjoying his Halloween haul.
And the policeman on the other end of the phone said, "We have traced a call. It's coming from the floor below you. Get out of the house!"
This would be the wraparound story for the episode, which many anthology horror shows and movies would often have. They would, however, only last the first 4 episodes because broadcast times allotted for the shows were shortened, so in order to keep from cutting time out of the short stories, they decided to instead just remove the wraparound segment. The first segment, Bad Dream House, was directed by Wes Archer and written by John Swartzwelder. The Simpsons move into their brand new home, which they got for a steal, but the reason for the bargain would soon come clear.
Get out.
What on earth was that?
Probably just a house settling.
The house clearly has an evilness to it, but the Simpson family is completely oblivious. When Marge enters the kitchen, the walls begin to bleed, which is most likely a reference to the horror film The Amityville Horror. Despite bleeding walls and a portal to unknown Lovecraftian horrors beyond one's imagination, the Simpsons still act like nothing is wrong.
Get out.
Okay, boy, let's see you talk yourself out of this one.
All of the family are ready to leave except for Homer, who got the house for a steal. They decide to stay the night to think things over in the morning. That night, the family all become possessed by this evil entity, telling them to kill one another.
They are all against me. They all must die.
Homer picking up the axe could be a reference to The Shining, or the more likely Amityville Horror. Maggie then spins her head around, which was taken from The Exorcist. The family all circle one another until the cool-headed Marge, who was only up making a sandwich, breaks them of their trance.
Oh, that does it. Children, get dressed. We're leaving.
Oh, come on, Marge. You said you'd sleep on it.
Marge is ready to pack up and leave when Lisa discovers an ancient Indian burial ground in their basement. This is obviously taken from the film Poltergeist, where the main character's new home was built upon an Indian burial ground, but it wasn't as on the nose as it is here. They didn't have a crazy horse tombstone next to a not so crazy horse tombstone, or even Mahatma Gandhi, who isn't even native. Homer, in a blind fury, calls the man who sold him the house because he claims he was never told that it was built on an Indian burial ground.
He says he mentioned it 5 or 6 times.
The entity from the home starts telling the Simpsons all the horrible things that will happen to them if they don't leave, until Marge has had just about all she can take and puts her foot down.
This is my family, and we're not going anywhere. We're all going to have to live together, so you better get used to it.
The Simpsons leave the home so the evil spirit can have a moment to think about his decision, ultimately deciding to end its own existence rather than spend any more time with the Simpsons. The house implodes in the same manner as the house from Poltergeist, and also took some inspiration from the Roger Corman classic, The Fall of the House of Usher. The house itself was modeled after the Addams Family home, and some shots of the home may even be inspired by the film Psycho. The next tale in the episode is titled Hungry Are the Damned. The episode was directed by Rich Moore and was written by Jay Kogan and Wallace Wolodarski. As the Simpsons enjoy a nice day out barbecuing, they are suddenly abducted by a flying saucer, although 2 tractor beams are needed when trying to abduct Homer. Aboard the craft, the Simpsons are met by 2 tentacled space aliens named Kang and Kodos, along with another alien whose name cannot be pronounced, and Sarek the Preparer, who are both never seen again after this episode. The alien's design was based off a cover from EC Comics, although the exact one seems to be unknown. It's most likely Weird Science 6 or Weird Science 16. Kang and Kodos would become mainstays of the Halloween episodes going forward, and an unofficial rule was put forth that they must appear in every Halloween episode. Although this would cause issues because many times they were forgotten and had to be added last minute, making many of their appearances very brief.
Here you go, Earthlings. Take all you want, but eat all you take.
Kang and Kodos are bringing the Simpsons to Rigel 4 for a great feast, although their motives for doing so seem dubious at best. Lisa starts to have suspicions that something doesn't seem quite right with what's going on, but for some reason the aliens only seem to want to serve and entertain.
Dinner time.
Hey, how come we never see you guys eat?
Lisa questions why the aliens never seem to eat, and they claim they're saving their appetite for a great feast when they return home. There's then a really clever shot where Homer and Marge's food is served, but it's made to look like their heads are on plates, throwing more fuel on the fire that they may be what's really on the menu. The Simpsons are weighed, while Lisa decides to do some digging around the spaceship, where she comes across a book that says How to Cook Humans.
Oh, come on, Lisa.
You don't believe me? Then just look at this book that I found.
Kang arrives to quell any fear by blowing space dust off the book to reveal its actual title. The aliens take offense to the fact they were being accused of wanting to eat the Simpsons when what they really wanted was to show them paradise and treat them as if they were gods. All ruined by Lisa because she couldn't accept the fact these beings from another world might actually be friendly. Although Matt Groening's original intention was to have the aliens end up being evil. The book at the end of the episode was going to be revealed to say how to cook for 40 humans and then eat them. This segment was based on the Twilight Zone episode To Serve Man, which is about an alien being who comes to Earth to offer man paradise, only for it to be revealed they plan on using the human race as food.
To serve man, it's a cookbook!
The third and final story is based on The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, directed by David Silverman and written by Sam Simon and Edgar Allan Poe. The story is a faithful adaptation of the poem, although it does cut out large chunks in order to have it flow better narratively and for the shortened time frame for the show. Series creator Matt Groening had worry about the segment because he was afraid it would come off as too pretentious, as it was light on gags and more closely followed the poem. Lisa reads the poem, with Bart interjecting every now and then, claiming it to be boring, while Homer is poised as the narrator, with the voice of the narration being done by James Earl Jones. Homer laments the loss of his wife Lenore, whose hair is so big it takes up 2 separate paintings to do her portrait, until a knocking at the door disturbs his mourning.
Darkness there, and nothing more.
Huh?
Returning to his study, an even louder noise emanates from his window, where a raven flies in, terrifying Homer in the process. The raven, clearly Bart, openly mocks Homer for his loss of his wife, which drives him into a rage.
Nevermore.
Why, you little...
The raven gets the better of him, even dropping some of Poe's other works on his head. One shot even has a bust of Edgar Allan Poe on one of the bookcases as well. The wraparound segment ends with the children heading to bed after a night of horror, although the only one that seems to be affected by it all is Homer.
I hate Halloween.
The closing theme for the show was changed to a creepier tone, more fitting for the episode. Originally, they were going to use a theremin to produce the music, but they weren't able to find one that could produce all the necessary notes. Treehouse of Horror debuted October 25th, 1990 on the Fox network and was the third episode of Season 2. Season 1 didn't have a Halloween episode and is the only one not to. The episode received mostly positive reviews from critics, with TV Guide placing it in their list of top 12 Simpsons episodes in 1998. The Raven specifically was seen as an accomplishment because it showed the show could not just be funny, but also seen as very intelligent. James Earl Jones, most well known for the voice of Darth Vader, appears in all three segments. First as the Mover in Bad Dream House, then Sarek the Preparer in Hungry Are the Damned, and the narrator in The Raven. When James did the voice work for Sarek the Preparer, he would eat cookies near the mic to get the right drool sound while he spoke. Treehouse of Horror became so popular that it would lead to tons of merchandise, from action figures to comic books and even video games. The Simpsons Night of the Living Treehouse of Horror was released by Fox Interactive and THQ Games back in 2001. The entire game follows the Treehouse of Horror motif, as you are sent to rescue the other Simpsons family members from recognizable characters in the Treehouse of Horror series. Treehouse of Horror is a great spooky time. I wasn't as appreciative of the first outing when I was younger because it all felt a little rough around the edges and slow, but as I got older, I grew to really love it. It has a really spooky feeling that is missing from later episodes within the series, especially when they get stupid and start spoofing things like Transformers. But we've only just begun, as every Tuesday for the month of October, we're going to take a look at another Treehouse of Horror episode leading right up to Halloween. So light your jack-o'-lanterns and grab some candy as we continue to sink our fangs into even more Simpsons Treehouse of Horror.
Thursday.
For the whole this year.
Welcome to the Simpsons Tales of Halloween.
Hello? Something scary happening.
From a haunted house
Do it again.
No.
Do the blood thing. Come on, do it. Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it.
to outer space.
There's something not quite right about this.
The girl's right. Let's get some applesauce out here for these pork chops.
You'll laugh till you scream. The Simpsons Halloween Special, Thursday on Fox.